inputs coming in on the story. Now, many rare honours in this foreign visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, today when Prime Minister Narendra Modi lands in Papua New Guinea, their Prime Minister will come to receive Prime Minister Modi at the airport. Now, normally, Papua New Guinea does not give ceremonial welcome for any leader coming after sunset. But a special exception is being made for Prime Minister Modi, and a fully studded ceremonial welcome will be given to him. And also India is getting back-to-back invitations to G7 summits. And as we mentioned earlier, the Harris Park area in Parramatta area will be also known as Little India, and this will be also announced during Prime Minister's community event in Australia. We have our political editor Maria Shakil with us from Hiroshima. Maria, so today when Prime Minister lands in Papua New Guinea, their Prime Minister will come to receive Prime Minister Modi, and this is being done as a special exception by Papua New Guinea. Can you give us more details?
Yes, that's right. The FIPIC Summit will be taking place there, in which 14 countries have been invited. Largely this summit used to happen because of connectivity issue. The leaders won't be able to connect online, but now they are all going to be in presence at Papua New Guinea when Prime Minister Narendra Modi lands there as well. This is a rare honor that has been extended to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where the Prime Minister will be present at the airport. There will be a special ceremonial welcome that will be extended to the Prime Minister. The point here is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is being seen as the voice of those countries which have never found a place on the high table, that their concerns have never been shared, that their concerns have never been heard. And their concerns are very different from the concerns of the developed worlds. That these countries, when the questions are asked about, climate change and their participation in it, that they cannot do that because they have other challenges on hand. So that's a very realistic presentation of what really ails the world. A part of the world has to be heard. And that is the reason why Prime Minister Narendra Modi is voicing that. He is talking about a 10-point call of action, 10-point agenda which should be discussed. Those are issues which impacts this significant part of the Indo-Pacific. So I think that is what is making all these meetings very, very crucial. And yes, Prime Minister Narendra Modi being invited regularly for the G7 is certainly significant, because G7 countries together form around 45% of the global GDP. But when it comes to their overall world representation in the context of the population, it is just around 19%. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as the face of India, which is the largest democracy, which has a growing population, at the last estimate certainly suggests that we are the most populated country in the world. The challenges that we faced is something that is being faced by most of the underdeveloped and developing nations. So the Prime Minister is putting that on the agenda. He is telling the world leaders that, G7 may have been relevant in the post-80s. In these times, it is India which understands it, and hence there is a need to expand G7 to make it more representative. Perhaps G20 has it, and that's the reason why when he met Prime Minister Kishida, he spoke about a greater synergy between G7 and G20, the presidency of which is with India. That G20 is far more representative, a grouping and so when we look at all these facets, you realize that India is being positioned as a voice which is heard. India matters, and that is the reason why most of these countries are seeking appointment with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, even on bilaterals. For example, United States, Prime Minister Modi will be is scheduled to visit US next month. There is a state visit which is on cards, but still there was a bilateral that took place besides a quad summit that took place here as well. So the messaging here is very, very strong, that India is being watched. India's methods, in the way India is handling crisis and the way India is responding to crisis is making the world very, very curious about us.
Right, Maria. Also, can you tell us what all is on the schedule of Prime Minister Modi during his visit to Papua New Guinea?
Yes, so the FIPIC Summit is going to take place there, and this is an interesting grouping of around 14 countries. Prime Minister again there will be, setting the agenda, talking about their concerns, but at the same time, talking about issues of livelihood, issues that impact these countries. So I think, when we look at the global leaders, sometimes the concerns are that is there a disconnect between what they think impacts the world and what are the real issues? For example, the stand that has been taken by the West against Russia of very strong sanctions. A number of these countries have had equations with Russia in which Russia was seen as a supplier of essentials. So this is what is the point here, that when you have world leaders, they should be connected with issues of the people. And if you remember the interview that was given by the Prime Minister to Nikkei Asia, he said it clearly that the groupings such as, or the institutions such as the UNSC, is it becoming increasingly irrelevant because it doesn't really have the right kind of representation. India is, of course, pitching for a permanent seat at the UNSC, United Nations Security Council, and is hoping that there would be a resolution or a movement in that direction for it.
Right, Maria. Thank you so much for getting us that context on this. And now let's listen in to